I remember when he was Minister of Power and Steel, and I think at least 16 cars were assigned to him. And he was like, this is profligacy. This is not possible. I can't maintain more than 2 cars of my own. So he brought it up in cabinets. And they were like, no, these are the perks of the office. And he said, no way, I don't want. So he would return things like that. He would, and then, I remember Kemachikwe came to the house after my dad was killed. And he said, is it in this house, or we just came to this house as a decoy? I said, no, this is where he was killed now. He said, and even though they did as if they had, put tape on the place. And I said, let's, and he said, this is it. She touched the door. He said, this is just an ordinary carpentry wooden door that you just kick in that. She, as a woman, you have to go through like 6 bulletproof doors before you can get to her. I'm like, well, my dad didn't even have any bulletproof. He didn't have any bulletproof anything. And even when I had a premonition that somebody was going to kill him.
You had premonition?
Yeah.
Did you tell him?
I told him.
What did he say?
He said, for sure, I don't want you to think like that. Nobody can kill me. Because a certain gentleman had said, I remembered all the events distinctly because my daughter's birthday is on the 15th of December. On the 15th of December, my dad had gone to the former of Ooni of Ife's palace, where the late Chief Stella Obasanjo was getting a chieftaincy. So my dad had gone, and something that has never happened in his whole political career happened to him. His cap was removed, and I don't know, maybe his glasses, or maybe his glasses fell or something. Anyway, so when he came, on that day I had sent food, because whenever it's any of us, when we celebrate a birthday party, we cook and send the food to him. So I'd sent food from my daughter's birthday. So when he got back, he now called me, or I went there. So Funsho, something really bizarre really happened today. In my entire political life, nobody has ever removed my cap. Even and this is the Ooni of Ife. And my mother is the godmother of Tokunbo Shijuade, the first child of the Ooni of Ife, because the late Ooni of Ife's late wife, Mrs. Yetunde Shijuade, who is Tokunbo's mom, and my mom were classmates in school. So she used to come to my mom's chambers and my mom's quarters here in Iyagonku, And so my mom, we've known the Shijuades for a long time. So my dad felt it was all very weird. Anyway, this happened on the 15th. And I remember we went to Abuja for my mom's OFR thing. We went to, I think we left for Abuja on the 16th because it was on the 18th. And so when we got there, a friend of mine sent, I'm not on social media, I don't know what's going on. Maybe she saw some newspaper thing, that article, and then she sent it to me and said, somebody said that this is going to be Bola Ige's last time he comes to Ife. So my mom, overnight, maybe it was because I got that news. That 18th to 19th, I now had this dream. Or is it when we came back from 19th to 20th? Actually, I had the dream before my dad died. And I told him. And I said, I saw myself wearing jet black. And I was crying. And nobody could hold me. I said, Daddy, I have a feeling that they're going to do something to you. He said, who are they? I said, all these people that are threatening that you will not come to Ife again. It's going to be Bola Ige. So my dad said,
who were these people threatening him?
Iyola Omishore.
At that time, he was the deputy governor to Akonde.
Yes. and they were trying to either impeach him or impeach Akonde. I don't even know. There was a lot of political wahala in Osun State. In fact, Bisi Akonde was not in Nigeria when my dad was killed. He was outside of Nigeria. I think he arrived that night or something. I can't even remember. I only remember the ones that concerned my father. And so I told my dad, I said, I dreamt that I was mourning. My dad said, no, nobody can kill me. God has not given my life over to anybody. And I remember my father always says something, he said, I am surrounded by the white light of Christ through which nothing evil can penetrate.
He had no supernatural powers?
No, not as far as I know.
He was ordinary?
We would just go to church. But my father had a very strong faith, and he always fasted every day of his life apart from Sundays. So if you put him in prison, he doesn't care because he's used to not eating. He lives a very Spartan life. There are times I'll go to my father's house and he will put off the AC. And I'm like, Daddy, why are you putting off the AC? He said, because what if one day they put me in a place and there's no AC? Will I now my body be craving for AC? I'm like, I can't sleep without AC. My dad can't sleep without AC. My dad, if in detention, they will all have a latrine and a bucket, and everybody will be peeing inside, pooing inside. My father had no sense of smell, so he can be sitting next door to the pit latrine, he wouldn't even know. So my father was, he had learned to put himself under. My parents were married in 1960. By 1962, my dad was already under house arrest restriction order in Ubiaja. And so my dad said, that one thing that he'd always prayed for against was what happened to Awu, that Awolowo's first son, Segun Awolowo, died in an accident when Awolowo was in prison. So my dad, as soon as they lock him up or something, the first thing he's going to say, pray to God, Father God, just protect my wife and my children. That he can't take any kind of deprivation, but he cannot bear to be in incarceration for anything to happen to his children. So I remember I shared that dream with him, and he said, nobody can kill me. I said, these people are planning something. He said, nobody can kill me, Joe. Don't even allow negative thoughts into your mind. I'm surrounded by the white light of Christ through which nothing negative.
He was not security conscious.
At all.
No men around his
At
house.
All. My dad would give his, that time they had all these satellite phones that are really big like this. Those knots, 9 knots. He would give it to his security. He said, he doesn't want anybody to be calling him when he's on the road.
No talks around the house.
No thugs around the house. Our house, the fence is, you can see through like this, the fence to my father's house. You can, everything. My father, when he became governor, he was living in our house in Okeado for months before he moved to the government house. And that's his Attorney General's quarters in Abuja. You see him, that my father was like a bird of passage. You know how my mother was still working as a justice of the Court of Appeal. I was still working in the Ville College. Muiwa was still doing his work in. You know how now they will become minister and the whole family will move to Abuja and be getting contracts. That's not how my dad was. So when he died, and Muiwa went to pick up his things. And then, when he died, because of the way he raised us, my mom said they should send back all the jeeps and all the things that belong to government. Other people now, they see people who are only central bank governor, how many jeeps they take to their house. My dad, so by the time my dad died, we didn't have any government property because my mom was a civil servant, and so she knew that, those things don't belong to him. It belongs to the government. Those were the days when men were men.
Do you think if he had left the Obasanjo government at the time he wanted to, it would have been a threat to the PDP? I
don't know. Hindsight is 2020. I remember when my dad was going to join Obasanjo's cabinet, my dad always says that your family is your first constituency. So he discussed with us and said, Obasanjo is asking me to come to his government.
Obasanjo was his friend?
Well, he thought he was. Because when Obasanjo was in prison and my dad knew that they were going to poison him, my dad actually alerted Obasanjo that they were going to poison him. So they weren't friends. My dad went to school in Ibadan Grammar School, in University College, Ibadan. So my father's friends were Akima Bugunje. There are people that he went to school with. Obasanjo and my dad didn't go to school together. So they're not friends like that. Like Wole Soyinka is my dad's friend. So everybody that's my dad's friend, I know who Obasanjo was not my dad's friend that they grew up together. My dad, I don't know his children. They never came to our house. We never went to Obasanjo's house. So I wouldn't say that they were friends like that, but they were acquaintances. He can't say that. I saw Obasanjo came to our house when he wanted to become the president. He came to that same house that my dad was killed. He came there. So, they were, my uncle, Tayo Akpata, he was in PDP. He was in MPN. My father was in UPN. My father was in ACN. What was it?
AD.
When my AD. Uncle Tayo Akpata was my guardian when I was in school, in law school. I lived in Uncle Tayo's house. And he was NPN. Uncle Tayo's wife and my mom are cousins. So my dad, there's no politics of bitterness. When Remy was alive and his wife had to come to UCH for treatment, she stayed with my parents. What's the name of this TV guy? Joseph Taka was a lawyer, was my dad's friend. My dad would go to Simeon Taka stayed with my parents because my dad had his growing up years in Kaduna. So they spoke Hausa to each other. So my dad is that kind of person. My dad is just a very different. In fact, I remember I told my dad one day we were talking and I said, Daddy, this Nigeria is not worth dying for. My dad said, anything worth living for is worth dying for. I'm like, yeah, you can't die for this Nigeria. This Nigeria is a useless place. He said, no, it's not a useless place. So he didn't say that he would die. He didn't know that he was going to die, but I don't think he was afraid of death. And because he thought service to community is the highest service you can give to God and to man, for people to benefit from your good decisions. My father never did anything that would be for the benefit of his own children. It was children of other people, health of other people. My father was a humanist, and so he was very different. And now when I look at the people in government now, I just shake my head. It's so sad how things are supposed to get better, but the quality of leadership has just gotten worse in terms of people with solid minds. My dad was commissioner when I was in secondary school. My dad was commissioner under General Adeyinka Adebayo, and I was going to St. Anne's. And my dad was first commissioner for agriculture, then he was lands and housing in his 30s when he wrote against military government, and General Adeyinka Adebayo sacked him. The following day he took his wig and gown, he went to court. So it's not like all these ones that they are just ministers, they remove them, they just stay in Abuja until the next government come, and So my dad wasn't like that. He wasn't a chop politician.
When he called the family to consult, to say he was going to join the Obasanjo government, did the family give its blessing?
Well, my dad is kind of person that he reasons with us, and I said, well, I don't know if that's a good idea. My mom as well said, well, I don't know, but I don't know if that's a good idea. But he said, the thing is, I can make a difference if I'm on the inside, better than if I'm just on the outside. And so, and because I know that my dad's also not a whimsical person, that he would have thought about it. And by December 2001, he already had planned his exit strategy, that he was going to leave before the end of Obasanjo's term. And then I guess they thought, okay, you think you can leave in March? We are actually going to take you out now.
He was going to organize the progressives.
Yes. And he wrote there, because he showed Muiwa and I the copy of the letter.
And the progressives were going to oppose Obasanjo?
Yes. That he's going back to his party to go and organize his party.
And the party did not give him the blessing to join the Obasanjo government, right?
Some people in the party did, some people didn't. He was still Afenifere's deputy leader at the time he died.
Yes.
Baba Adesanya I think Papa Adesanya was still alive when my dad died. It was on Nosonya that my dad went to his waykeeping on the 21st before he was killed. Because the Onosonya children came when they heard my dad was killed, and they were like, but Uncle Bola was still at our dad's service of songs or wake or whatever.
Because from what I have read and from some of the interviews I have conducted,
yes,
his joining the Obasanjo government divided Afenifere.
Well, I'm not like a politician like that, but I know, there were primaries in the ACN,
the
AD.
Yeah. I know you are not too political.
I know.
Muyiwa is more political.
I think, yeah.
Even in your book here, you stated it clearly that you are avoiding the politics.
I avoid.
Sorry, I'm dragging you into it.
No problem. I'm not. That's what I'm saying. That I wrote this book from the perspective of a child, and my father's daughter. Other people who reviewed the book put it in political context and made it fuller. Because really, as my friend Kunle Ajibade said, for a lot of people who are not Nigerians, would not really understand the context without like the historical background that he put. So I'm hoping to include that in the reprint. I've asked his permission to use that so that it will give people like a context background, contextual background to the story. So my dad had wanted to run for presidency and the AD primaries, and the AD elders, I think there were 21 or 14 of them, I think 21, and they voted for Falai instead of my dad. And my dad still worked with Falai. I mean, there's a recording where he went to America and he said that the people should support Falai. So my dad was a card-carrying member of AD. He never left AD, even when he joined the PDP government.
Your mom was a justice of the Court of Appeal.
Yes, my mother was a justice of the Court of Appeal.
A justice of the Court of Appeal could not get justice.
Yes, she was the justice of the Court of Appeal who meted out justice to other people, but justice was not given in her own husband's case.
And she could not take it.
She couldn't take it.
She just couldn't take it.
She couldn't take it. I think that was like the last straw for her.